Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of the Million Pound Mission podcast. It's your buddy Adam, the PhD, the previously heavy dude, and this is episode number 242, Creating a Friendship with Food, with my friend Chinmayi Dore. This is the final extra interview of the week on New Influencer Week. Hopefully you have enjoyed that. Hit me up on Instagram and let me know at Million Pound Mission. Send me a DM and see if you are enjoying some of these new influencer spotlight episodes. Now, before we dive into this one, and it's a good one, so sit tight, one more final reminder, June 10th, we launch our next Habit Launch Challenge. It's your favorite price, free, 7 days, 10 minutes per day. I have concocted a very special mobility video for each day. You just press play, follow along, and you will feel better at the end of the session. We've got accountability groups, a lot of fun things in store for that group. June 10th, we launch. Go to habitlaunchchallenge.com. It is free. Get some momentum. Build a little bit of that mobility habit. It's very important. We're going to launch that new healthy habit, and you're going to be a lot better off for it. Now, let's see a virtual raise of hands, all right? I know you guys are out there in podcast land. Virtual raise of hands. How many of you feel like food is your enemy? All right? I think a few of the hands went up. I can feel it. Now, I think that anybody on a weight loss journey is going to feel this way at some point along the way, right? And I definitely have. That's for sure. So with this episode, I want to introduce you to somebody, my friend Chinmayi, that is going to shift your perspective when it comes to your relationship with food. That's her mission, right? Now, she left a banking career in 2007 at the age of 41 to pursue a desire to help others physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And she also committed herself to a very intense period of learning and retraining in yoga and holistic therapies. Like, she went on a journey. All right, very interesting. She has learned from some of the most, elite leaders in these areas of yoga, holistic healing, and she's just a super interesting person to talk to. Now, in incorporating these practices into her own life and becoming more conscious generally, she discovered that she had been managing an eating disorder since her teens, which she had just accepted as the norm, which I think a lot of us do. Now, as she incorporated yoga, meditation, Reiki, and other healing practices into her life, she realized that her binge and emotional eating had all but disappeared, which is amazing. Now, this knowledge eventually manifested in a comprehensive book that we're going to talk about. It's called Body Magic, and she's going to give you a few of the chapters for free with a special link in the show notes for this episode. Now, in this conversation, we talk about the relationship between happiness and healing. We dive into the essential components of developing a friendship with food. We talk about clearing emotional baggage with yoga and meditation. We also get a quick tip from her. I basically said, hey, if somebody's ready to start healing, they aren't sure where to start, what's something we can do right now? And she delivers big time. So Chinmayi is an awesome person. You're going to love her. She's just very heart-centered, and you can tell that she wants to help. All right, so I hope you enjoy this episode. Without further delay, let's dive in to episode number 242, Creating a Friendship with Food, with my friend Chinmayi Dore. All right, Chinmayi, thank you so much for joining us here on the Million Pound Mission. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing really well, thank you. Yeah, really good.
Well, I'm excited.
It's good to see you again.
Yeah, we got connected a few weeks back down in Florida at the New Media Summit, and you were one of the people that was kind of talking about that they do these pitches, and there's a lot of people promoting their stuff, and I was on stage, and I turned around for you. It was like the voice contest style, so I turned around instantly because I loved your passion, your enthusiasm, and I could just tell that you were somebody that really is interested in helping people and making a difference, and that resonated immediately. So I'm excited to connect you with my audience.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was really quite odd because when you said £1 million mission, I thought about £1 million as in money. I didn't even make the connection. So I thought, why is he turned around? He's all about money, not weight. I didn't realize, obviously, pounds are what you call weights, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I'm really screwed if we ever convert to whatever the rest of the world does with measurement. Then it's not going to make any sense. I'll have to do a podcast all about money, I guess. That's we'll convert over.
Yeah,
but no, I'm thrilled to have you here. And you're somebody that you've had so much life experience. Like you've packed in multiple lives of experience in your life so far, I feel like. So I'm really excited to dive into your story. And let's just kind of start off with a little bit of a review of your own health journey and how your journey first began. Like what instigated that?
Well, I spent 30 years really in struggling with health. I think that's the best way to describe it, because I knew what healthy was. It wasn't, like I grew up eating really badly and never exercising, but I was in a yo-yo place. So I would binge eat and then diet and then look for the next diet. But of course, the same diet never worked twice. So I would always be looking for the next novelty and tried all sorts of exercises. I mean, I come from the Jane Fonda era. So, I've been through a few diets and a few exercise programs in my lifetime. So, so my relationship with health was very jaded. But what I find when I look back is that it had more to do with the stressful life that I was living, until I really started to find out what was serving me best and the best way to be in the world in terms of my health. So really, I think when I gave up my corporate job, that really sort of tipped me over the edge. So I was kind of forced into a situation that there was only one escape, and that was to really start taking my health seriously again. And I remember I was smoking cigarettes for like 20 years and going down the gym and playing badminton. And, so this kind of like almost like bipolar kind of healthy lifestyles, it just wasn't serving me, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of people out there that do those sorts of things where they justify their lifestyle with a few healthy acts, back in my days when I was doing a lot of personal training, I had one individual that would pay me a decent amount of money to come over to their house 3 times a week, and we would work out. But I knew every single lunch he was going and eating the buffet at the Pizza Hut, every single day, and kind of like justifying that through working out. And it was achieving a negative return. He was gaining weight consistently. So I feel like there's a lot of people out there. So for you, what broke the cycle, both mentally and with your habits? What was the thing where the scale started to tip in the other direction?
I think the pivoting point for me was when my mother passed away, because I was forced into a situation that I couldn't escape from. So whilst before that, I was living a very stressed out kind of corporate life, I was able to soothe it with alcohol, food, drugs, all the stuff. I was drinking a bottle of wine every night just to kind of bring myself down off the crazy, stressful. Even the journey home would be like fueled with all this stress. So, but when she passed away, I had no choice all of a sudden. I couldn't escape from it in any way. She was gone and that was the end of it. So I knew that if I carried on the way that I was going, I was going to die. There was no way that I could cope, because I had to give up the job. I had a total mental health and physical health breakdown. I just couldn't function properly for a long time.
And that's a topic, that's a topic that I feel like is important to bring to light for a lot of people, because I'm just running into so many people. I do free coaching calls to podcast listeners, and I'm running into all these people like, I just don't have time because of my job, because of my career, because of my obligations. They not only don't have time for themselves, they don't have time for their family, their children, and the exact same thing you just described. They're just working themselves into an early grave.
Yeah.
And I feel like there needs to be a wake-up call out there. And there are some movements like minimalism and, that whole mindset, early retirement. I'm really a big believer and an investor in thinking about, how early can you retire? You shouldn't want to work until you're 80 years old, especially like a corporate job. So I feel like conversations like that need to take place.
Definitely. And I say to my clients now, if you don't find the time now, time is going to find you, and you won't be able to fill that time the way that you have the choice to do so now. And that's exactly what happened to me. It was like the universe, whatever your beliefs are, was pointing a big fat finger at me and saying, no more. Girl, you can't go anywhere. And I couldn't. I literally could not move most days. My body was like so weak. I didn't even know what a breakdown was, but physically I couldn't move. I was just like a lifeless rag doll, you know.
Yeah.
All my functions started to break down. You know, I couldn't eat properly. I couldn't sleep properly. My skin was just awful. I didn't even know how to smile. So mentally, I was just like a zombie, really, like a lifeless doll. I had nothing going on. But I tell people now, you know, mark my words, and we see it like on a regular basis. People get stressed out, they keep pushing and pushing and pushing, they stop eating well, they stop exercising, and then they get a cold, you know. So sooner or later our body's just going to say F you, and like it's just going to stop. It's just going to stop. Yeah. And it's better to have control of all of that and find a media way so that you can at least enjoy life and enjoy what you're doing. And, you know, I've been in the corporate world, and then when I started to recover from my breakdown, I went totally the opposite way. I became a bit of a hippie. I got dreadlocks put in my hair. I went to India to learn how to become a yoga teacher. I did a proper eat, pray, love thing, you know?
Yeah.
So I went the other way, where I really didn't give a shit about anything, you know, least of all news, government. I just switched off completely from life. And now I think sort of like, 12 years later, I've kind of found a bit of a middle ground where I'm a lot more easygoing, a lot more chilled, a lot more cool about stuff. I don't let things get to me. I don't take on the world's problems, but I do take responsibility for myself first and then others next.
Yeah.
I always say to people about time, you know, sorry.
No, you're fine.
I always say about time, you know, we can't make time. You know, time is time. We can't even find it. It's not hiding under the desk somewhere later for you to go and grab hold of when your work is finished. You know, everyone has the same amount of time. And there are people in the world that manage it really, really well. And we should be looking to those people, you know, these like entrepreneurs and, you know, people like Brendan Burchard, you know, they're so productive, you know, they don't have any more time than us. They just allow more time for themselves. And I think it's about permission. So instead of relying on someone else to give us permission, like a boss or a parent or a child or you know, a son or a daughter, they're never going to do it. You know, we have to give ourselves permission. And that's where the empowerment comes, I believe.
Yes. I love everything you just said there. Now, one thing that sparked when you were talking about your kind of your life transitions, I feel like a lot of people go through that, especially when we're talking about weight loss, where we kind of hit one end of the polarity scale, where people are very focused on their lifestyle. They're, you know, working a million hours. They're not focused on their health at all. So that we're out of balance towards, you know, the unhealthy side of the equation. And then the mistake a lot of people make is they feel like they can find balance and they just automatically rebalance into a perfect situation, where in reality, we have to swing to the other side of the scale and spend some time being unbalanced towards the healthy side of the equation. So more hours focusing on our nutrition, focusing on fixing ourselves, and then we kind of back into a position of balance, like you found with, you know, being the entrepreneurial mindset and bringing your hippie roots and finding that nice little balance in between. And that's who you are now. So I feel like that's a common thing but a lot of people try to force that situation where, well, things have been way out of balance. I have to achieve perfect balance from that position. It's a really hard place to go. So
it is. And it's also very boring, right? Yeah. Because I wouldn't be sitting here today if I hadn't been to those extremes, you know. Big changes happen when we push the boundaries. You know, if we try to stay balanced, I don't know what kind of job I would have ended up doing. Probably like a desk job, like an accountant's job. I don't know what I would have ended up doing, but it wouldn't be what I'm doing now. You know, I feel like I've lived a very privileged life, and I don't mean money-wise. I mean just my attitude to going and getting stuff. You know, I sat on the side of a mountain for 4 days and didn't eat anything, and that was a big turning point for me, because I taught my brain how to go without food. I would never have done that, at 43 years old, if I didn't have some kind of being able to push myself out of that kind of balance. But at the same time, you know, it's it's coming back from that edge every now and again as well, because you can't sustain it. You can't keep traveling the world unless you've got some kind of income coming in, unless you want to, I don't know, work for charities and struggle around the world. People do that. That's not my style, but I think, we have to we have to get a balance in terms of coming back from the edge now and again. So like I went right down and I lived without money and shampoo and, and then I thought, actually, do you know what? This is pretty grotty. This isn't what I want to do, So I needed to come back from that in a different way, but do something I love, So people are talking about retiring early, but for me, that's not even on my radar. I'm 53 years old, but I have no intention of retiring because I intend to do what I love for the rest of my days, But that's not possible for everybody. You can't always do that if you're traveling, having an hour's commute there and back, and working in a big organization. But I do feel like what I do, I can probably do for the rest of my days. Yeah. And it doesn't feel like a job. It feels like a passion. So it feels like a hobby. Yeah. So
I feel like it's me personally, my goal is to keep doing what I love to do as long as I want to do it. But when I'm truly free, when I reach that point of financial freedom, that's the point where I only do what I want to do, where I only am passionate about it. And anything that's outside of that just doesn't need to happen, because at that point, I'm not driven by doing something I don't want to do for a paycheck. I'm doing something that I truly want to do because of the experience and the impact. And that's it's more of a financial freedom than a true retirement type thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
So
yeah, great.
With all your experiences, I'm really interested to dive into this. You've been around the world. You've trained with masters of different practices. What would you say is one of the most amazing or impactful things that you've learned through all your journeys?
I would say yoga, definitely, because yoga helped me to recover from 30 years of binge eating disorder. And on so many levels, I actually started my first yoga class because I thought it would make my thighs thinner. That's all I cared about back then. And I did it for about 2 years, I think, before I had my mental health breakdown. And then I went back to it for a totally different reason. So what yoga did for me really was to help me to connect with my body again. So I'd had 30 years of binge eating, which takes a massive toll on your health and well-being. It's constant stress. And I'm really happy to talk a little bit about how dieting or binge eating affects the body. But I'd had 30 years of that. And I think the reason why I came to that decision to do yoga was that I didn't have any goal. When I went in there, in the end, it wasn't about thinning my thighs, because I wasn't hardly eating anything. I was totally unhealthy, so I wouldn't have recommended that to anybody. But it helped me to create a relationship with my body, which I hadn't had in all those 30 years. I was constantly berating and punishing my body by doing all the crazy diets and schemes that I did, and then binging, filling it with a load of crap because I wasn't finding any peace with myself. But it wasn't my body's fault, So in learning how to connect with my body, I also learned how to forgive myself and ask my body for forgiveness, because it's the biggest part of me. It's the one thing that I wasn't happy with for all that amount of time. So that connection was a massive turning point for me, definitely. But then obviously it moved into the more mindful levels. So I was more conscious of my relationship with my body all of a sudden, because yoga does that. It helps you to become more mindful and find more peace. And it wasn't just like a straightforward a fitness yoga class that I was doing either. It was very much there was very much a spiritual element to it. So in this meantime, I was going through this kind of hippie thing and finding myself and getting more and more chilled about life in general. And I think the whole thing just pieced together beautifully for me and saved me.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the quotes on your website that I just absolutely love is it just says friendship with food. And just like taking that mindset, I know that me just saying that, so many people are going, that's my aha moment for this podcast. I mean, developing a friendship, I mean, like you just described, a connection with your body, a partnership with your body, a friendship with food. So tell me exactly what you mean about, like, describe the friendship with food thing and how that impacts this whole process that you're going through.
Yeah, well, I think it's just when you're binging or when yo-yo dieting. So we go on a diet, and then usually by day 3 we get really, really bored, and then come off it. And there's a scientific reason why this is, but we can't help ourselves. We start binging again, and that to me is like, it's like being in a relationship and then going out and having a wild affair and then realizing that it's actually really wrong and really bad. So coming back to that with all of the guilt and all of the shame around having been disloyal to another person, but with myself, it would seem like that. Yeah. But the truth is, and this is what I write about in my book, probably not enough because I've gone into it in a lot more detail since I wrote the book, is that when we go on a diet, we trigger something called the famine response. So our reptilian brain, the most ancient part of our brain, hasn't evolved as fast as our food supply has. So when we go on a diet, the brain thinks that we're in a famine situation. It doesn't know that we have like mountains of food down at the store that we could easily go and grab without having to hunt for it or run from a bear or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't know that. It just thinks that there's a famine on and we can't eat. There's no food available. So after 3 or 4 days, like when we go to someone's house for dinner or whatever, or somebody comes in with some cake for birthday or something like, we actually physically find it very hard to stop reaching for it because that part of the brain is like, wow, feast. So it will go and it will grab that food and it will be in your face before you can say gatto, because it wants to stock up because it doesn't know when the next famine is coming. So it's trained to do that, which is why people say I've only got to look at a cream cake to put pounds on.
Right.
It's true. And they literally do, because actually we start salivating as soon as we see it and we cannot physically resist taking it. It's so hard. So willpower is pretty useless because it thinks that we're dying of starvation.
Right.
So, the more times we do this, the more the brain is so easily triggered into thinking that. And what happens, it makes the whole situation worse because things start to shut down in the body. The digestive system slows down. We start producing cortisol because actually in a famine situation, we're in the stress response. So we start producing more and more cortisol. The more times we diet and binge and diet and binge, the more cortisol we produce, which puts fat around our organs, which is so unfair because everything is starting to shut down.
Yeah.
Which is why the first diet and the second diet usually works really well. But if we keep going through the binge and the diet cycle, it becomes more and more difficult. In fact, the binging overtakes the diets so that overall we're putting weight on. We're eating the same amount of food that we were before, but we're putting weight on because everything has slowed down. So when you put it like that, it's pretty unfair, really.
Yeah, and I know so many people struggle with this. Like this, I do whole podcasts about what I call the black hole of fitness doom, which is basically what you just described of we get some traction, we lose some weight, something happens, we regain it back. But taking the binge eating perspective, that's just a whole other level because it's that emotional component and we feel lost, and like you can't control what's, like you said, like what's going in your mouth. I mean, that's like the simplest thing, right? Like, that's one of the first skills we learn is how to like nurse and how to, feed ourselves basically. So the fact that we can't even control that's kind of deflating. So if somebody's struggling with binge eating and they want to try your approach, how do we get started with that?
Well, the first thing to realize is that another diet isn't going to change it. If we're talking about emotional eating, then surely, like common sense, we need to look at the emotions, because it doesn't matter what we eat or how much we eat. If we are emotionally eating, it's going to be really hard work unless we take some notice of the emotions. So the first thing to do is to work out what actually needs soothing. Because like you said, when we're first born, the first thing we do is we look for a nipple. We look to put something in our mouth, and it might be a dinky. We call them dummies over here, and later on in life, it might be cigarettes or sweets or food or or candy or whatever. They're all soothers, and sugar is the perfect example because it immediately soothes the brain. But the first thing to do is to find out exactly what it is that's causing us to feel these emotions, because an emotion is actually two words. It's energy in motion, and something is stuck, so something needs to shift. And sometimes after a couple of years of emotional eating, we've forgotten what it was because we've got so good at soothing it and not facing it and not looking at it that it's really difficult to know ourselves anymore. And the two keys to my book, to success in my book, are know thyself and know thy worth. And the first thing is to understand yourself on such a level, as I came to do through yoga, but there are lots of ways of doing it a lot quicker than I did it. Finding out what it is that needs soothing, first of all. So in my book, the first 3 chapters of my book is all about that, really. Is getting to know thyself on a whole new level and find out what are the emotions that need soothing. Because once we've got that, it's like when you get into your car and you want to go to a party on the other side of town, you put into your sat-nav where you want to go, but your sat-nav needs to know where you are to start with. So you can't have a route unless you know where you're starting from. So it's really important to know what those emotions are that we're soothing, because it's happening all the time. It's happening so instantly and so instinctively that we've forgotten what they are. So the first 3 chapters on my book will help the reader to find out exactly what that emotion is through a series of questions, actually, and explanations about how and why that works.
That's awesome. I know that you have given us a great offer where you're going to actually hook us up with the first 3 chapters for free. And I'll put the download link in the show notes here and in the blog, so that way you guys can check out exactly what we're talking about here. And that's hugely appreciated, because this is the really hard part of, I feel like it's important to have somebody like you kind of holding our hand saying, all right, it's like ripping off a Band-Aid. Like, we know it's going to hurt a little bit, because soothing is easy, fixing is harder, and we have to kind of uncover that wound a little bit and then dive into what's like you said, the real underlying issue. And that's where the real work needs to be done, but it's not going to be an easy job. So I appreciate the tool. It's going to be super helpful.
Yeah. And I think what I would say about that is that it's never as difficult as we think it's going to be. And the reason for that is because most of these emotions have come from childhood, and when we were kids, we only had 2 or 3 big things to deal with in our lives. So one might have been school, one might have been homework, and one might have been pleasing mum and dad, right? So when we're older, so proportionately, those emotions, the ones that kick-started those emotions, are relatively unimportant. It's just that the emotion that we've suppressed since that time has escalated. So our memory of that situation is huge. So when we unearth it, we think it's going to be really painful again because we've suppressed it for so long, and it's just got tighter and tighter. It's like a pressure cooker. Yeah. If we keep pushing things down and pushing things up, the pressure around them builds up. So we perceive that they're going to be like an almighty trauma that's going to be released, and we're going to be in pieces and we're not going to be able to cope. But here's the thing, we're adults now. Most of these things come from childhood, and we're far more well-equipped to deal with them than we were when we were children. So it can seem like it's going to be really painful, but most of my clients are actually quite surprised at how easy it is to look at those things and how releasing and freeing it can be to not have those comforts needed anymore. Yeah.
I mean, it'll feel like a weight off your shoulders, literally. You're releasing all that negative emotion and the unhappiness that surrounds that. And the next direction I want to take this conversation is, I know that you believe that there's a real distinct connection between happiness and healing. And like, let's talk about that a little bit, because again, that's a hard mental shift to make, is as we're trying to fix things, but we maybe have that little negative voice, chattering in our one ear. And you're saying that we need to really lean on happiness and use that to heal what we're trying to heal, or heal our body, or heal our relationships. So let's talk about happiness and healing and that connection.
Yeah. So healing has a different meaning for a lot of people, but I think if you ask anybody what they want, like if I was to say to your listeners now, what is it you're looking for? People would say, well, I'd like to lose 20 pounds, or I'd like to, I'd like to get fitter, or I'd like to run a marathon, or I'd like to do X, Y, or Z. But at the end of the day, why do they want to do that? You keep peeling back the onion, and underneath it all, there is, because I want to be happy. So I want to get fitter. Why do you want to get fitter? Because I want to enjoy life more. Why do you want to enjoy life more? Because I want to be happy. Yeah. It's the reason why we choose our job. It's the reason why we choose our partner, why we travel, why we choose our destination when we want to go traveling. So the reason is to be happy. But unfortunately, life gets in the way, doesn't it? And things do happen. And depending on your beliefs, I'm quite a spiritual person. I think I am. I don't believe in spirits as in terms of like talking to ghosts or the people from the other side. I'm not particularly a religious person either, but I do believe that we are all here to learn something. And I think that's been the biggest revelation for me, because I did grow up in a very religious environment. But I think what I've learned is when these things come up again for us to look at, and the point where my eating became so unmanageable and my health was just destroyed, it was just like, okay, now you're ready. Now you're ready to learn. So what is it that needs healing? And so much stuff came up that I'd forgotten all about, trauma from my teenage years and stuff. And I thought I'd dealt with it, but I hadn't really. And I went on to do a healer's course, and all of these things came up. And this was like 4 or 5 years after my mum passed away. So when we started having to do all these exercises, I'm like, no, not again. Please don't make me do it again. I've been there. I've done it. I've sorted it. I know where I am with life, But as soon as I started doing it, there was more shit in there that needed to come out. And it was so freeing. And I really did get in and just dig it all out. And I just thought, no, I can do it. And it changed everything for me. It changed my relationships in a very positive way, especially the one with food.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you believe that everybody is here to learn. I also believe that we're all here to teach something. So what would you say is your thing that you are meant to teach, that the area that you are meant to make an impact on? What's that look like for you? Are
you ready for this?
I'm ready.
I believe that I'm ready. I'm here to teach people that there is a much easier, much more pleasurable way of losing weight than dieting. And it's just taking, we're only looking at the physical when we count calories and we look and we choose food, what and how much to eat. But our relationship with food, most of it is emotionally driven. So how can we expect to keep weight off in the long term unless we look at the emotional relationship with food and the spiritual aspect of it as well? And I think once we can bring those aspects in, instead of just buying into a culture of dieting, which I think I told you these stats when I did my pitch, the America spends $168 billion in the diet industry every year. And only 5% of people keep the weight off for more than 2 years. So we've been educated to believe that a diet is successful when we lose weight, but nobody's keeping an eye on how long that weight is staying off for.
Yeah.
So I think that my reason for my teaching, if you like, is to try and get people to open their eyes and just look at long term, a little bit more long term. We live in a culture where we want a quick fix, don't we?
Yeah.
And I've been there, I used to go on a diet after Christmas because I'd, gone over the top with my food, and I'd lose a bit of weight, and then I'd join the gym, and then by March I was bored with the gym, so I'd do something else. But then the things started creeping in. Then Easter is a big deal over here, by the way. So we've just had 4 days off of eating the same thing. It's like Thanksgiving is, I think.
Yeah.
So we can have usually have a turkey dinner or, something really big, and lots of chocolate eggs. And yeah, so it's quite a big, it used to be a very traumatic time for me. And then after Easter, we'd do it again to try and lose weight, to get into that bikini body, to go on holidays and, traveling and stuff. And then you go on holiday and you just eat because you're on holiday. So you'd even make the excuse, you say, oh, fuck it, I'm on holiday.
Right.
So, and then the whole process would just start all over again, So it is a miserable way to live, whereas I think if we could just understand why we eat rather than what and how much, and just get off this cycle of binge and emotional eating, it would be so releasing for people. So I think that's what I'm here to teach.
Yeah. And I see the cycle. I think there are different levels of this cycle, even. Like, obviously there's the very traumatic and very dangerous cycle of the binge eating and the emotional eating, but even just the traditional cycle that I see a lot of people where, beginning of the year, New Year's resolution, I'm going to be healthy. Then we go through to here in the States, we have spring break in March, and they go towards that vacation. And then that's kind of their main driver. And then they cut loose on vacation. They gain a little bit of weight on vacation, but the real trick is they don't get back into their healthy habits for several months after the vacation, and they gain weight. And then they get into like a summer vacation. Okay, now I'm going to lose some weight for the summer vacation. And then same thing. Oh, holiday season, forget it. I'm not even trying. So there's all these waves back and forth, and it's damaging physically, but mentally. But people just accept it. Like, that's just, how it is. And that's just what blows my mind, is that this is not how it is. This is not healthy. This is not what our body is meant to be treated like. And we have to change our relationship. So I think we're fully aligned there.
Yeah, me too. I think we've just bought into a culture. This is why we spend so much money in the diet industry, because we've bought into a culture of everything being very temporary. What about if we could go on a holiday where every meal was a buffet and not eat until we're bursting? What about if we could go through Christmas and spring break and eat the same way that we do every day, and eat as much as we want to of the right things without feeling guilty about it? What about, I've just eaten chocolate, but I know that my weight is going to balance out because I'm not keeping tabs on myself. Yeah. Because I'm not putting myself in that stressful position of I threw my scales away a long time ago. Why do we let a chunk of metal dictate to us how we're going to feel for the day?
Yes.
How do we do that?
Yes.
Because we're taught that everything is about weighing and measuring. And it's not about feeling.
Yeah. How do we get around that mindset? Because that's what's buried deep in the heart of everybody trying to lose weight. It's what do you weigh? How much have you lost? What's your goal weight? How do we exit that and focus more on the action steps that will eventually lead to weight loss? But it's just a total different mental paradigm to work through. And, the control is in a different area. Like, the scale is controlling us. And I see people, like you just said, that weigh themselves every day, and they change what they are doing every day based off of what the hunk of metal tells them. So how do we make this shift that needs to happen here?
So instead of jumping on the scales, how about we looked in the mirror and we said, how do you feel today?
Yes.
Yeah. Because if we know how we feel, then we're able to spot opportunities where we might need soothing, and we're able to make more healthy choices. And I don't just mean food, because that comes back to like oh yeah, well, I really want a bar of chocolate, so I'm going to have a bowl of lettuce instead. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Like, what can I do for myself that's going to make me feel better today? Because I'm not feeling myself, because it's not just about food. And I think this is where body magic comes in. It's not just about food. I'm not saying that we should go ahead and eat exactly what we want. I think anybody is doing you a disservice if they say, go ahead and eat what you want as long as you count the calories. I think food affects mood. So it's really important that we do eat for health, to give us that energy and give us that passion for life and health and continuity, where if we just count calories but eat pizza, it's not going to serve us in the long run. So focusing on health is like, how do I feel today?
Yeah.
That's the way forward.
What other paradigm shifts do you think we need to make just with traditional thinking and putting a different spin on it so that we can just be more successful and think more long term, like we talked about earlier?
Having more compassion for ourselves, I think, and actually making a decision in a moment, any moment that makes us feel like we need soothing, to show ourselves compassion in a different way apart from food. Food is so easy, right? Because we have so much sugar at our fingertips that we can call on, and sugar goes straight to the brain. Literally, it's crack. It's crack for kids. You never see children fighting over a fruit bowl, but they will fight for the death, for a bowl of candy, as you call it,
Yeah.
So we need to kind of like think of that as a drug. If you're addicted to heroin, you have to, because it's socially not acceptable, you have to do something about it. But it's probably just as addictive as sugar is.
Right.
But because sugar is legal, even children can buy it from the store, right? So we're not taking account of the fact that we need to show ourselves some love. So what can we give ourselves that's going to make ourselves vibrantly healthy and give us lots of energy in that particular moment?
So is that,
and there are loads of tools in my book, loads of tools.
Yeah. So is that where like yoga and meditation, is that what facilitated that for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, if somebody rings you and they give you some bad news, you can't necessarily just pick up your bag and go to the local gym and do a yoga class in that moment. It's not always that possible, but there are some really easy things that you can do in that moment. One of them, for example, is like a flower remedy, which you can buy, called Rescue Remedy. So certain emotions can be soothed very quickly with that. To just give you a little bit of time, buy yourself a little bit of time before you reach for something in the refrigerator. Yeah. Another little trick that I use is tapping. So it's like tapping on certain acupressure points on the face and the hands. But there is one you can do really easy just by rubbing the wrists together. And sometimes you'll see sports people doing this on the sidelines. Because it helps to balance nerves. So if you're feeling really nervous or anxious about something that's coming up, that's a really good, a good little thing, a little trick that you can use. There's so many things. There's certain crystals that help to balance appetite, meditation. Even just a couple of affirmations that you can use. Even just, there's some of the yogis, they used to say to me, you Westerners, you're so lucky. You've got caves in your office buildings that you can go meditate in when you want to. And I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? And he's talking about our toilets, because they're so clean and modern. He says, you can just go and sit there for 10 minutes and just meditate. You've got your own little caves. It says it's wonderful.
Oh my gosh.
And it's true, and this is something that this is one of the techniques that I gave myself, or one of the privileges that I gave myself when I was out for a meal, for example, in a restaurant, and I felt like I wanted seconds, or I wanted to have the biggest dessert on the sweet menu, which was an old habit. I would buy some time, so I'd just take time out and just go to the bathroom and just basically talk to myself. Just maybe do some tapping, maybe just sort of just take stock of it really and just think, how am I feeling right now?
Yeah. And
just give myself some time to think, how's my stomach feeling right now? I've eaten some really delicious food. What do I really want to eat to finish that meal? And sometimes I would just have a cup of coffee,
Yeah. Yeah.
with a bit of chocolate sprinkled on the top.
There you
and
go.
that would give me the same feeling, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, little strategies. And I think what the book will do is it give people strategies that they like, because there are 100 different ways in the book that I overcame my eating. But I've, you know, I didn't mindfully try to do any of them to give up emotional eating. I just realized one day, I thought, I haven't binged eaten for a year, maybe, or more. I couldn't even remember the last time. And I thought, wow, how did I do that? So I moved to Spain, and I took 6 months out to do some research and to write the book on the main part of the book. So that's how that's how the book was born. And I thought, I actually went on a course to learn how to do an online course. And I did a little mind map with emotional eating in the middle, or binge eating in the middle. And I just wrote down all the different ways that I'd overcome it, in my beliefs that I'd overcome it. And the lady that was running the course, she said, you don't want to make a online program out of that. You want to write a book. So, yeah, so here it is, like 27 chapters.
Oh, my goodness.
It's huge. It's like full scap. Yeah, it's massive. So the first 3 chapters that I'm giving away is actually 50 pages.
There you go. Now, you mentioned a couple of things that I want to dive a little bit deeper on. The tapping, the crystals, all that is something that I'm super interested in. You've had so many life experiences. You've trained under different experts. And so what do you feel like is a technique or a method that you would like to see, that maybe it's more like fringe healing, or people would be like, oh, that's weird, but that you would like to see more readily accepted because you really feel like there's value in it?
I would like to see, that's really interesting. I'm noticing that a lot of people are buying crystals for fun lately. They seem to be attracted to them, which is a great thing. I think it's a little bit of everything. I think because I've been like this high-powered executive working in banking, and then this like kind of like dropout hippie that really doesn't give a shit about anything, I've seen both sides of the coin, and I've noticed a massive division. I'm noticing that mindfulness has become a lot more popular. And I've written a whole chapter dedicated to, one chapter dedicated to meditation, and another chapter dedicated to mindful munching. Nice. So there are 12 steps to how to munch mindfully, and how to, just do it as a little ceremony, really. Cooking, preparing, serving, eating, and clearing away food. And it's a practice. It's just, everything's about practice. Yeah. I can't stress that strongly enough. There's no quick fix, as there isn't anyway with restrictive eating. It's not a quick fix. Yeah. This is a long-term plan which will give the results. But I think just take the pressure off ourselves and stop focusing on weight loss and start thinking on health gain. And then the weight loss happens. It has to, because then that balance is found. Yeah. It has to. Because we're not overeating anymore. There's no drivers there. There's no emotional drivers to do that. Yeah. And life and the happiness just like produces dopamine and serotonin. Yeah. And on that, I've been studying a little bit about the gut lately, and the link between the gut and the brain. So this is probably going to be my next book. Nice. In terms of emotional eating. And I didn't realize that 95% of serotonin is made in the gut. Yeah. And it's shared with the brain. So what does that tell us about when we put crap food into our body and it gets to the gut and our gut health, which when you're binge eating is really bad, because your body doesn't know when it's going to get nutrition next. And usually when you binge, it's not the best food. Yeah. What does that tell us about how we feel when we're not eating the right foods, and how we feel when we're starving and then overeating and starving and overeating? So that's been a revelation for me, and I'm sure there's an awful lot more for me to say about that. Yeah. When you get the second book out, we'll have to have you come back, and then we'll talk about that, because that's a whole
deep dive that we could do right there, just on the gut and why they call it the second brain and all that stuff. I mean, it's something that we can definitely have a good conversation about. Now, now you've just dropped so many amazing nuggets for us here. I've got one final question for you, but before we get to that, I want to make sure that people can fully get connected with you, with your stuff. So where's the best website to go? And I'll put all these important links inside of the show notes and on the blog. But let's just do a quick rundown of, where do we go to connect with you? Where do you hang out on social media? If people want a little bit more of you, where are they going to go to do that?
Okay, great question. Thank you. So obviously my book is available on Amazon as a Kindle and in a printed format. The book is a book, and what happens is people buy the book as the first step in the process. There is another step, obviously you've got to read it, and the third step is you've got to take action. The fourth step is that you've got to be accountable to yourself. So usually people fizzle out by the time they get to the fourth step unless they get additional support. So by all means, start taking action from the get-go. So get the first three free chapters of my book, so that at least you can start taking getting to know yourself a little bit better, finding out exactly what it is that's driving the eating and the emotional eating. You can find me on Facebook, which is Body Magic, an end to emotional and binge eating. I run quite a few courses and loads of resources on there as well. It does tend to be one way, though, a bit like a book. It's really hard to get people to talk about that on social media, and understandably so. Everyone's in an emotional state, and sometimes they just don't want to be reminded about from other people how it's not really always that supportive depending on your circumstances. You can reach out to me, and I will gladly have a short call with you just to help you get on your way to Body Magic and help you to work through the book. The book isn't just a reading book. It has exercises at the end of each of the 26 chapters. So it helps you to get on the journey. It's designed to help you overcome emotional eating. It's not just a reading book. I have a YouTube channel, which is Body Magic. I have a couple of podcasts. I've also got recently joined Raven TV International, and I've now got the Binge and Emotional Eating Recovery Show, and I've got 2 television programs on there. So I'm also on Roku and Amazon Fire TV as well. So, yeah, I'm getting out there slowly.
Everywhere. All right,
I'm getting it covered.
So I've got one final question. I love to end our interviews and send our audience out with some action steps. All right. So I want you to imagine you yourself at your kind of rock bottom moment where you decided to shift gears and change for the better. Let's say that one of our audience members is in that exact same position. All right. And you have an opportunity to sit them down, look them in the eye, and give them some sort of an action step that they can take within the next 24 hours. All right. What would that conversation look like?
That conversation would be like, usually we have to be rock bottom to make the decision that keeps us accountable on the journey to recovery. But the turning point isn't just like coming from taking action and reading a book or doing a course. It's deciding that you're worthwhile doing it for. So stand in front of that goddamn mirror for the last time and take a good long look at yourself and look for the person that's struggling in there that needs some help. Because it's an inside out job, you know. It starts with the inside. And when you decide that you're worth helping through this, then you'll stop at nothing to get the results that you want. But it's not by going pounding off down the gym and counting calories and measuring and berating yourself, because life isn't just a diet. You know, life is pleasurable experiences, feasts, you know, and occasions that you want to remember. You don't want to remember them for having to watch what you're eating all the time and feeling remorse the next day. So it's a mindset change. So for God's sake, look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm sorry, body, that I've done this to you, but it's not happening anymore. We're going within and we're changing shit.
Amazing. Chinmayi, thank you so much for your time. I know that you've got, obviously, with the rundown of all the connection points, you've got a lot going on. I'm very, very excited for you. I feel like you are somebody whose message needs to be out there because you are truly and passionately helping people. Like, this is what you are meant to do. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited when I see an entrepreneur or an influencer or a speaker that really seems to be in rhythm and in love with what their message is. And I feel like you fit the bill. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Adam. It's been a privilege talking to you. Yeah, I love your work.
Thank you very much. All right, my friends, we've been inspired. You have plenty of things that you could take action around with our conversation here today. And now it's time to get out there and own it. Every meal, every workout, every day. I will see you in the next episode. Hey, welcome to the after party here at the Million Pound Mission. Thanks for hanging out after the episode. I know that you guys love this one because Julie is just a special person. I want you to get the free 3 chapters of her book, Body Magic. Check it out. She really delivers. This thing is just like an encyclopedia. It's a giant book. So it's jam-packed with amazing info. So get that at millionpoundmission.com on the blog, or you can get it in the show notes right here. If you click on your phone, get the show notes, and the link is right there for you. Now, final reminder of the week, we start June 10th with our next free habit launch challenge. My goal with these is to help you ignite a new healthy habit. The healthy habit we are focusing on in our next challenge is body maintenance, all right? Mobility, treating ourselves well. So if you are somebody that wakes up with a lot of aches and pains or just generally aches throughout the day, this is going to be a good challenge for you. If you are somebody that just doesn't invest any time in you, this would be a great challenge to participate in. If you're somebody that just needs a community, a tribe to support you, and you need a little bit more, maybe establish some more accountability anchor points, this would be a great idea, all right? I've really put together some nice, easy to follow along videos. You just push play, and you'll feel better at the end of the 10 minutes. And you can do these anytime, anywhere. You're going to love it. So go to habitlaunchchallenge.com and join in on our free 7-day, 10-minute per day mobility challenge. You're going to love it. Speaking of loving it, let me know if you enjoyed this week with the bonus interviews, with the bonus material, the free episodes where we're talking to some new influencers that I want to shine a spotlight on. Hit me up at Million Pound Mission on Instagram. Send me a DM and let me know which one was your fave. All right. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the support of the show. Things are going extremely well. And it's because you guys are out there telling other people about it and just throwing some love my direction. And I greatly, greatly appreciate that, my friends. I hope that you have a great remainder of the week. Stay tuned for tomorrow. I'll still put out my Friday transformation reboot episode where I sit down with one of my reboot clients and strategize a little bit. So it's a full week of Million Pound Mission. I know it's a lot of information to absorb, but I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me. And as always, I want you to get out there and own it every meal, every workout, every day. I'll see you tomorrow for the reboot episode.